as one. I love double down, triple down. Fantastic work.
Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to discuss and review a catalyst turned masterworked, and this one so happens to be on this chrome sleek looking beauty called the Suros regime. Ever since way back when in Destiny 1, this thing has been a fan favorite, and that's because what it could do is it could have the chance to actually regenerate your health. In Destiny 2, this fact hasn't changed, and rather it's only gotten ever so slightly better because of this particular catalyst turned masterworked, and we're going to discuss all these benefits in just a couple of minutes. But before we do so, you guys have to know how to get your hands on this catalyst. Unfortunately, once again my friends, it's all RNG, and so the best way that you can get your hands on this is just to play a ton of Crucible, because actually, this is the only place that it drops from. If RNGesus just so happens to be on your side, then you guys are going to get this thing pretty darn quick. And it actually only took me about say 5 or 6 Crucible games to have it drop, but then once you do happen to have it drop, you then need to get 300 final blows in Crucible. In essence, what this means is that even if you happen to get 99.9% of the damage on the enemy guardian, but don't finish them off with the Suros regime and get that final blow, then that is not going to count towards your overall completion. And so you have got to get that final blow, but if this isn't the case, then the only thing left to say is muff Kevin's trash shenanigans. Once you attain these 300 final blows, the weapon is then going to become masterworked. And so as to exactly what benefits that this thing's going to give you is what we're going to discuss this very second. But not just that, we're then going to look at the weapon's base stats, its perks, its overall TTK factors, and let me just add that this thing has some very surprising and actually quite astounding TTK values, but as to see as to whether or not it's going to be very consistent, that I'm going to leave up to you. The only thing left to do is to eviscerate the notification button, and let's jump right into the video. So before we can even begin to discuss as to precisely what this catalyst is going to do for the Suros, what we have to know first is the weapon's very unique and intrinsic perk, and that perk just so happens to be called the Suros Legacy perk. It states that the bottom half of each magazine deals bonus damage and has a chance to return health on kill. In analyzing the first half of that statement, we're then going to have bonus damage in the bottom half of the magazine, but to be more exact, what this is then going to entail is say the last 5, 6, or potentially 7 bullets in the bottom half of the magazine, and that's then only going to increase the damage output by say around 1 or 2 points at the maximum. However, that latter half of the Suros Legacy perk is very unique, and what this is then going to entail is give us the chance to return health on kill. And as it currently stands, I'm only going to approximate this as say around 25% to actually regenerate your health when you down a guardian with a Suros. Knowing this, we then get into the meat of the Suros catalyst turned masterworked, and what it actually gives us is the Suros Ascendance perk. And what this perk states is that the weapon has an increased chance for kills to regenerate health. Now I can't say for 110% certainty as to how much that this is really increasing the chance of regenerating our health. And the only thing that I can say is that out of every 1 to 3 engagements, I was regenerating my health. Sometimes I might have been doing this back-to-back engagements, and so I might have gotten my health regen on 1 kill, health regen on the next kill, but then for the next 3 engagements, I may not have gotten any health regeneration at all. And so once again, this is all based on percentages or odds that Bungie has hidden, and we don't really know as to exactly what all these odds are. My best guess is that the odds of regenerating your health is somewhere in between say 33% and 50%, but once again, this is all speculation. And so the very next thing that we have to discuss is actually go to light.gg. And with here, you're then going to discover that the catalyst not only gives you the Suros Ascendance perk, but it also increases the weapon's recoil direction by an additional plus 50. Hearing that, you're probably thinking to yourselves, awesome, this is phenomenal news, because what this means is that we're going to have an exceptional overall shot rhythm with the Suros regime due to that plus 50 in recoil direction. But before we can actually see as to whether or not this is actually true, what we have to do next is we have to look at the weapon's other perks, because those perks are then going to increase the weapon's other base stats, and together, this weapon's base stats might just be ever so slightly better than what you're really anticipating. As we inspect the weapon, you're going to see that this thing has number 1, hammer forged rifling, and that's then going to be a very durable ranged barrel attachment that increases the range factor by plus 10. We also happen to have tactical mag, And Tactical Mag states that this weapon has multiple tactical improvements, including increased stability by +5, increasing the reload speed by +10, and increasing the magazine size altogether. And lastly, we then have Handlaid Stock, and Handlaid Stock states that this weapon is optimized for recoil control, significantly increasing the weapon's stability factor by 10. Knowing that information, it's finally time for us to inspect the weapon and all of its base stats entirely. And so as you guys can see from right here, all the blue values are from the perks and the increases that I just mentioned, whereas the red value in that +50 for the recoil direction is due to the weapon's catalyst turned masterworked. And viewing all of these base stats, there is not a single stat here that is muff cabbage, and rather almost every single one of them is exceptional and stupendous, because my rule of thumb is to always make sure that a weapon's base factors are above 50. And as long as they're above 50, this thing's going to do very, very well in Crucible. And as you guys just saw, the lowest base factor here was the weapon's range at 60 out of 100. As you all probably already know, range is by all means one of the most important factors on any weapon, and that's because not only is it going to give the weapon a greater damage fall off at longer distances, but it's also going to increase the weapon's overall bullet magnetism, and that's then going to allow you to have a greater margin of error to actually miss shots when in reality you're still going to hit them due to this high range factor. With that, I actually want to take one step back. I want to put all these base stats up there on screen once again, because the weapon's stability is at 63, its aim assistance is at 68, and its recoil direction is at 100 out of 100. And so what this in then turn means for you is that the weapon's shot rhythm is going to be exceptional, and not just because of that vertical recoil, but because the weapon's aim assistance and stability are also so high, it's going to be more consistent and land plenty of those critical headshots. Speaking of critical headshots, this brings me to my next point, and that this weapon is also very, very unique because what you can do is you can pick from one or two perks that are going to affect that critical damage output, and those two perks is either Spinning Up or Dual Speed Receiver. Spinning Up states that holding down the trigger increases this weapon's rate of fire, while on the other hand, we happen to have Dual Speed Receiver, and it states that when aiming down sights, this weapon's rate of fire slows while weapon damage increases. Let me be very, very clear, and that all the game footage that you guys have been seeing so far and will continue to see is with Spinning Up and Spinning Up alone. And the reason why this is because it's actually more lethal, and I'm going to get into that in just a couple of seconds. But before I do so, I just want to note as to exactly what Dual Speed Receiver does, because what it happens to do for the weapon is decrease the weapon's rate of fire from its base stat at 600 rounds per minute down to 360 rounds per minute, but in association with this, it's then going to do 36 points of damage in the head and 22 points of damage in the body. Looking solely at critical headshots and critical headshots alone, the weapon is then going to have an optimal TTK at 0.83 seconds, and that's then going to be relevant to 5 critical headshots and 1 body shot. Analyzing body shots and nothing but body shots, the weapon's then going to take 10 body shots, which is then going to be equivalent to a 1.5 second body shot time to kill. As you guys can see from right here, here's all those stats that I just mentioned, and the main thing that I want to know from this screen is that these computations were done with a Guardian that happens to have 10 resilience, aka 201 points of health. And so this may not be the same for all Guardians, but if it happens to be the worst case scenario, you can guarantee that you're at least going to have this type of TTK factor, and it might just be ever so slightly faster because a lot of Guardians don't run 10 resilience. With this, I want you to remember that what I said from before, and that Spinning Up is actually better overall for the Suros regime. And the reason why I said this is because it happens to have faster TTK values. But it's not going to be what you think, at least initially, and it's going to have that later down through the magazine. And the reason as to why this is because as you progress through the bullets and the magazine size, every 12 rounds, you're then going to get a faster overall rate of fire. And so initially, that's going to be at 600, then once you go through 12 bullets, it'll then go up to 720 rounds per minute, and then once you go through another 12, it'll then go up once again to 900 rounds per minute. Keep in mind that regardless of whichever kind of rate of fire that you're happening to have as you go through the magazine, that rate of fire is always going to have consistent damage. And so when this is the case, this critical damage output is going to be at 21 points of damage in the head, and in accordance with this, the body shot damage is going to be at 14. Likewise, All the number of critical headshots and body shots that you're going to need for whichever kind of rate of fire that you happen to have is once again going to be the same. And so then in all these cases, it's going to be 9 critical headshots and 1 body shot for the optimal TTK and 15 body shots for the body shot TTK respectively. Understanding all the information, I have no doubt in my mind that you guys are 110% asking yourselves, what exactly is the weapon's time to kill when each one of these rate of fires is happening due to spinning up? That, my friends, is the $1,000,000 question, and as you can see from right here, we happen to have the weapon's TTKs for 600 rounds per minute on the left, 720 in the center, and 900 on the right hand side. The main thing that's different here is that when you happen to have 900 rounds per minute, the weapon's optimal TTK is at 0.9 seconds, at 720 RPM it's at 0.73, and at 900 RPM it's at 0.6 seconds. Looking at those body shot values, when you happen to have the weapon be at 600 rounds per minute, that's at 1.4 seconds, at 720 it's at 1.17, and at 900 it's at 0.93 seconds. Once again, all those values that you guys just saw right there on screen was done with the Guardian at 10 resilience, aka 201 points of health. And so this may not be the case for all Guardians, because a lot of Guardians may only run 3, 4, or 5 resilience, and if that's the case, these TTK values might just be ever so slightly different for the weapon's rate of fire at 600, 720, and 900 RPM respectively. Upon knowing this data, you're probably thinking to yourselves, this is awesome because finally we happen to have an auto rifle that can compete with something like, say, the Not Forgotten or the Luna's Howl. And to you, my friends, I say, hold your horses because that may not be the case. And the reason why I say this is because remember, the way in which spinning up works is that you have to hold down the trigger the entire time in order to get this rate of fire increase. But also mind you, that you might be in one engagement, not happen to reload, and then may not be able to get that maximum spinning up rate of fire at 900 because you simply won't have enough bullets in the magazine. All in all, if I had to say whether or not the weapon was actually good, bad, or neither, I would say that it's neither. And the main primary reason is because this weapon is inconsistent in one of 2 ways. The first is with the weapon's health regeneration, because even though the weapon does happen to have the catalyst turn masterworked and that's then going to give it Suros ascendance, that consistency factor is simply not there. It's only going to be around, say, 33 or 50% per health regeneration kill. When it comes to using a weapon in the PvP environment, and more specifically comp, it has to be consistent, as that is an absolute must. And the second way in which this thing is also inconsistent is the way in which its rate of fire when spinning up is happening is going to be there or it's not. Even though the weapon does happen to have a TTK value at 0.6 seconds when the weapon has a rate of fire at 900 rounds per minute, that is certainly not always going to be the case, because what you can count on is a Not Forgotten or a Luna's Howl to always have that consistent 3-tapping potential at the very beginning of an engagement, and the same thing cannot be said for the Suros because at the beginning of its magazine, it can only have an optimal TTK at 0.9 seconds with a rate of fire at 600 rounds per minute. However, I will say that this thing is going to be a blast to use in regular quick play, and it can get some incredibly high crazy games that are going to annihilate, eradicate, and decimate Guardians, making the enemy team a little bit salty. If you're looking for a good time in quick play, and you want to have your entire team have the Suros regime, then my friends, things are going to get oh so juicy, oh so crispy, and oh so spicy. But nevertheless, let me know what you guys think about all this stuff and everything that I've said down in the comment section below, as I'm very intrigued to hear all your thoughts and whether or not you agree with my assessment or you don't, you think it's complete trash or you think it's excellent, and no matter what you guys say, I can always guarantee that your opinions are certainly going to be respected. Lastly, be sure to watch the newest, check the latest, and share, comment, like on social media because you are the greatest. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, Deislayers. And as always, GG TNT.